All right, Dave, if you would, please.
Good evening. My name is Dave Good. I'm the Constituent Services Administrator for Chesterfield. I just wanted to step up and take care of a little bit of housekeeping before we get the meeting going tonight, and then I'll introduce our host. Tonight's meeting is being held in person, of course, here in the public meeting room, but it's also being held virtually via Facebook Live. It's also being broadcast on the county's YouTube channel, as well as on Chesterfield County Television on Comcast 98 and Verizon 28. Just a little bit of housekeeping, as I mentioned. After we hear from our panel tonight, we're going to open it up to a Q&A session. We're going to be taking questions from both people in the audience in person and also from our virtual audience by monitoring the feed, and we have staff here to do that, to pull those questions so we can feed those to the panel. I would ask that anyone who is in the audience in person, please step forward to the same mic I'm at tonight to pose your comments and questions. It's very helpful in terms of the experience that our folks that are tuning in virtually have, and it also helps so that everybody, both in the room and at home viewing, can hear your questions and concerns. With that, I appreciate the time. Welcome, everybody. We appreciate the engagement with the county. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our host, the Honorable Jim Holland, who is, of course, the Dale District Supervisor with the Chesterfield County Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening. I am James M. Jim Holland, Dale District Supervisor, and I'm honored to be your host this evening for the first of 5 budget town hall meetings. These meetings have become a tradition within Chesterfield overall process of hearing from citizens. I'm here to listen about the county's proposed spending plan prior to the board taking action in March and April. We will hopefully approve the budget in April, and you'll see the calendar events shortly on the screen this spring. Next to me this evening is our County Director of Budget and Management, Mr. Gerald Durkin. He will speak in a moment as he will share the information on the proposed fiscal 2023 budget and then work with me and the other county staff members to present and answer your questions, especially from those virtually and those in the audience. But I also want to mention with me tonight, also I'm honored to say, is our school board representative from the Dale District, Ms. Debbie Bailey, who's here as well. So we have our school and county representatives here because we're going to talk a lot about schools and investing in schools and making a difference. I often say that Chesterfield is on a journey toward excellence. I made that statement in 2008. I'm still here making that same statement when I was first elected by the citizens of the Dale District. And I believe the proposed fiscal year 23 budget represents just that. Tonight, you're going to hear about historic investments in our schools. Sometimes you don't always hear about that. What we're doing to recruit and retain the very best employees to serve the citizens of Chesterfield. A $540 million bond referendum we're planning for the fall 22, which is the broadest package we've issued in many years. $540 million. I hope that you will evaluate it and vote on it. Either way you choose to vote, but vote. And of course, we're going to talk about the broadest tax relief package Chesterfield has ever offered. And I've looked at the budgets and tax plans for the last 20 or 30 years doing my research. And so, and tonight represents also an opportunity to listen. But I've heard what you said before. Citizens have informed me and other supervisors over the years that their top priorities are public safety, education, and transportation. And we are attentive to those. And you hear a lot about pay plans and what we've done over the last year, what we're doing this year, and continue to do to be the best in the region. So those are our top priorities. And I've always supported education as a Dale District Supervisor, teachers, the classroom, and student support. Just for my PTA friends, I want to share I've been a PTA treasurer, a PTA president, 2 district vice presidents for the PTA. I've also served as a district director for the state PTA. So I've been involved in education pretty much all my life, and certainly involved in the county. So, and I want to also give Ms. Debbie Bill an opportunity to say hello before I turn it over to Mr. Durkin, who will share the numbers, the details. Ms. Bailey, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. And I would just like to say thank you to all the citizens that have come out this evening, and I feel very honored to be sitting up here next to the Honorable James Holland, who's invited me. This is unprecedented. Actually, I don't recall a time in the past where we've had a joint town hall meeting like this on the BOS's budget. And so I'm very privileged to be here. The school system is a huge priority for the Board of Supervisors, and especially for Mr. Holland. He has always supported schools, and we're very grateful for his efforts and his support for our school system. So I'm just here to listen as well, and I feel very privileged to be here to hear what you have to say this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in person and online. I will jump straight into our presentation this evening. This budget that is before the Board of Supervisors really coalesces around the four areas that are in front of you right now. As Mr. Holland's already outlined, our historic investment in our school system, employee recruitment and retention, our upcoming $540 million bond referendum, and then the broadest tax relief package that the county has ever offered. And I'll talk about each of these as we go through the presentation before you tonight. So I'll start off with the broad tax relief. This is really the core of the fiscal 2023 budget. But the core message of this is that the actions that the board have taken since December and are before the board in this proposed budget translates into a tax relief program that is in excess of $52 million, or to put it another way, an average of $300 per household. Since December, the board has adjusted the personal property tax relief brackets from $1,000 to $1,500. That was the first amendment to this program since 1998, which relieved this tax for an additional 14,300 vehicles. And the elderly and disabled tax relief program, we matched the Social Security COLA adjustment, cost of living adjustment, by 6%. We matched that through all the brackets, the first time that has been done in over a decade, enabling those seniors who are on fixed incomes to potentially participate in this program, relieving some of their real estate taxes. And then our BPO, our business license tax, and we increased the threshold from $300,000 to $400,000. That essentially means that 2/3 of businesses located within the county no longer pay this tax, and the businesses that do pay this tax will see an additional tax relief on an additional $100,000, saving on average about $2,000 per business. The two main broad tax relief packages in this budget before you today is a real estate tax reduction from 95 cents to 92 cents. The board, realizing that the assessments, just not a unique phenomenon to Chesterfield, but happening nationwide, took early action by proposing a maximum tax rate of 93 cents. It was a 2-cent reduction. Through this budget process, and the budget is before the board now, we were able to take off another penny on that, relieving taxes by 3 cents. Additionally, the vehicle registration fee that was increased in 2015 from $20 to $40, that is now being proposed to go back to $20. To put that in the equivalency of the real estate tax rate, that's about an additional 1.5 cents on the real estate tax rate. And then additionally, which I'll go into in the next slide, is the personal property exemption relief, commonly known as PPTRA in local government speak. Given to us by the state. We have taken actions that will come through this budget, recognizing that we will have some of a surplus this year, to increase that relief. The first time we have done that, I believe, since the program started. So that will be an additional $15 million of relief to Chesterfield taxpayers. So as you can see in the chart before you, it's a kind of short history of our real estate rate. As I said, we are now proposing that to go down to 92 cents. We looked back through all our records and believe it's the lowest that we have ever had in history. As I said, the home value increases that we are seeing in the community are not unique to Chesterfield. They're happening nationwide. The rate that we have before the board is sustainable throughout that 5-year plan that we have, and we have modelled it all the way through. And as you can see, the reduction that we're proposing matches kind of what we did in that 2007 to 2008 era. One thing I will say to everyone here is that back then we did see some year-over-year large increases. We are not projecting that that will happen again. National forecasts have the real estate market cooling down back to that long-run average of about 3.5% to 4%, and that is what we've built into this budget moving forward. So coming back to that personal property tax relief, as I said, the board's already taken the adjustment, raising the threshold from $1,000 to $1,500, but recognising that vehicle assessments are also up, have taken the opportunity this year of increasing that threshold from 46% to 55%. And you can see the chart there before you, going back to fiscal year 2009. This year we'll have an uptick in that relief rate. Originally, when it was passed at the state, it was providing just about 70% of that relief. The amount that we get from the state, about $41 million to relieve against vehicles, has not been adjusted by 1 cent in that time, which means that Chesterfield and other locality taxpayers have been increasingly faced with higher bills. Last year it dipped to 46%. As I said, with a projection of a surplus this year, we are increasing that percent. I believe we're the first, if not the only locality in the state that's doing this, which will relieve, as I say, an additional $15 million for taxpayers in Chesterfield, essentially the equivalent of 3 cents on the real estate rate. So every year we usually present what is commonly known as the dollar bill, how each of your tax dollars are spent. We decided to make it look a bit differently this year and put it in terms of blocks. By far, as you can see, the largest expenditure that makes up the general fund budget is the one line item, the transfer of the local dollars to our school system. And that is projected to increase by $18 million this year. And I'll talk about schools in a few more minutes. A quarter of the general fund revenues, go to our public safety division, including our police, fire, sheriff, community correction divisions. And about 9% of it is going to our capital programme, which I'll also go through in the next few slides. Those 3 buckets alone account for over 3/4 of our general fund expenditures. So we're expecting the fiscal 2023 budget to increase by about $98 million, or 12.1%, recognizing that this is a larger than what is normal increase. So I'd like to take a few minutes to kind of break this down as to what's driving this increase. First, the largest bucket you can see there, about $35.6 million, is investing in the workforce. As you may recall, we implemented the public safety pay plan last year with the intention of doing a remaining pay study for all general government employees, as well as those on the school side. Having worked with an outside consultant, you probably hear a lot of us say this a lot, but while we never endeavour to be the pay leader, we do have to keep pace with the market, and we are now facing competition from those that we would not have typically faced competition for before for hiring of staff. Additionally, in response to our proactive approach to the public safety pay plan, the market in the region has moved again, especially with regard to starting salaries. So this budget therefore proposes an investment package in our public safety agencies by about $12.5 million to ensure that our public safety pay remains competitive within the region. Secondly, the board has made great strides with the capital improvement plan over the last few years, especially in the arena of major maintenance. As service demand grows and our facilities age, we are increasing our investments in major maintenance as well as a variety of projects around the county. I'll talk about the referendum in a few minutes, but this increase that you're seeing before you does include about $13.4 million of one-time expenditures, including upgrades to our financial system that is nearly about 20 years old, and a shared warehouse facility that I believe is in your district, Mr. Hollard, is shared with our schools. Schools, again, we are proposing an increase of $18 million to that transfer, which will help them achieve many of their goals. A part of our fiscal year 21 year end of results, the county did make a one-time infusion of $27 million into the school's supplemental retirement program. And if you recall, about 5 years ago in fiscal 2016, that program was only 16.7% funded. That $27 million infusion brought it to 100% funded status, which then enabled to free up operational dollars going back to the school. So in essence, the effective increase going towards our schools as a result of this is about $28.8 million. And then finally, as you'll see in the block there, we do have some additional funding requests. Those are strategic investments that we make throughout this budget. They total about $7.6 million, which is less than what we have typically done in years past. Again, I'll go through those, but did want to point out that that lower level of funding and a good chunk of that funding, over $2 million of it, is related to contracts. As I'm sure we're all feeling personally, the county as well, as the effects of inflation, and those are feeding through to our contract prices that we are obligated to pay. Setting employee compensation, the demand for labour over the last couple of years has skyrocketed. Again, while never endeavouring to be the pay leader, we do have to keep pace with the market. The minimum wage in Virginia is scheduled to be $16 per hour by 2026, or $15 per hour by 2026, excuse me. But if you go out in the street just now, the effective market rate, what is dictated by employers out there, is $15 per hour right now. A lot of our positions are on that lower end of the spectrum, and we are having to increase that in order to retain a lot of the workforce that provides the service levels that our citizens demand and expect. We did have a 2% merit go into effect for employees this February. We have worked with an outside consultant both for the general government workforce and for the general school employees. Phase 1 of that study that's in the fiscal 2023 budget is a group of employees will go to either a new $12 or $16 minimum pay plan or a 5% across the board adjustment. Public safety, we are working through the nuts and bolts of that right now, but we are looking at increasing our starting salaries again to remain competitive within the region. We do have programmed in February of next year a 2% merit for the general government workforce. And then phase 2, realising we can't tackle all of this in 1 year, will be under consideration as part of our fiscal 2024 budget. So to come back to those 5-year enhancements, they've kind of coalesced around the 5 areas that are in front of you right now. Our continuing commitment to public safety. As part of our fiscal year 23 budget, we are proposing to add an additional 3 police service aides per year, and that has been a highly successful program, relieving sworn officers from certain types of duties that could be handled by non-sworn employees, but also creating a kind of talent pipeline as our officers age out and retire, and bringing in that new generation of public safety officers. There is a minimum staffing increase for fire and EMS to ensure there's adequate levels of service across the county 24/7. Strengthening infrastructure and facilities, and we are increasing our local contribution to the Greater Richmond Transportation Company for the Route 82 Express route, and we're also increasing our staffing in our buildings and grounds area, as we have more facilities coming online with the referendum, with HVAC and custodians and some full-time trade positions. Enhancing quality of life, that has been a big theme for us over the last few years, especially with COVID. We are implementing the next phase of the Parks and Recreation Athletic Field Crew. As part of the fiscal year 22 budget, we started that process by adding staff that had not been added in several years to take care of our athletic parks around the county. And then for our library system, a continuation of what we started last year, and changing the ratio from our part-time to full-time staff. Last year, about 2/3 of our library staff were part-time, with only 1/3 is full-time. By the end of this 5-year plan, they will have an additional 35 full-time employees, reversing that ratio. Then customer service. Chesterfield puts a premium on customer service. Some examples that are in this budget is a taxpayer portal where you'll be able to go online, view your bills, submit applications, and not have to wait on stuff coming through the mail, so you can have a more real-time interaction with the Commissioner of Revenue and Treasurer staff. And then in communications and media, we have a creative content writer and videographer position. So that, through our social media outreach, through our blog, through our podcast, you can see what's going on with your taxpayer dollars and interact with us and the board as things happen throughout the year. And then investment in support services. One of the things that we do here to kind of dovetail with our emphasis on recruitment is we are going to be funding a county-wide internship program that will enable kind of next generation of public servants to come through to, year to year, a lot of localities may increase pay or focus on keeping the staff they have, but we take a longer, more strategic view that we want to make Chesterfield a home for people to have their career. And then in our EMC and HR staff, they have had faced incredible demands over the last 2 years. We are proposing as part of this budget to include a full-time nurse practitioner that will both serve county employees as well as school employees. That said, one of the things that we don't really talk about every year that we decided we ought to this year is that we do have many unfunded requests as part of this budget. One of the less glamorous aspects of my job, shall I say, is going through all of those and knowing that we can't do all of these. We had about $18.5 million of requests. That was over 140 requests that we did not fund, including 81 positions. You can see some of them there before you, ranging from our Parks and Rec department to our sheriffs and our IST. We work with departments as best we can to see if we can find a way of making it cost effective. Can we spread it out over a few years? Are there some outside funding? But at the end of the day, we just simply cannot fund everything that's requested. That doesn't mean to say that they aren't worthy requests. It's just that with the competing pool on your taxpayer dollar, we can't fund everything that we set out to achieve. And then in our capital plan, we have just under $250 million in capital requests that we could not fund over the 5-year horizon, including some police vehicles, additional park sites, fire stations, and then some re-entry facilities for the Sheriff's Office. And then for the first time, you will also see, going back to that operating part for a second, in our document, you will see in part of the appendix a list of all those unfunded requests, what department they were from, what they are for, and the amounts. Then finally, what we have included in the last few years as our population grows and our road rent network faces ever greater demands, we can't fund all the requests that come in for our transportation projects, even with the new Central Vermilion Transportation Authority. Again, the level of unfunded requests for our transportation projects throughout the county is in our document, but again, totals over $4 billion worth of projects that we are not able to currently undertake. And then, as you build a budget every year, and maybe more so this year than in years past, there have been many unknowns as we've developed this budget that are ongoing right now. We've had a lot of, coming back to that labour market fluctuations, people turning over in their jobs, inflationary pressures. I believe the new rate came out today and it was about 7.9%. That's the highest in 40 years. I'm sure you're feeling it. I know I'm feeling it, and the county's certainly feeling it. And that may actually be exacerbated over the next few months as the geopolitical unrest in Ukraine continues on. With embargoes on Russian oil exports, that may end up feeding through even further to prices here at home. That being said, the budget that is before the board has been developed with flexibility in mind to be able for us to pivot any resources in the face of a changing economic landscape. We do have a sizable increase in our PAYGO, or basically cash to our capital improvement program, to include some new district enhancement programs and some seed money for the referendum projects to be able to jumpstart those projects if approved. We do have that merit adjustment for the general employees to kick in next February. And then, recognising that if these pay plans go into effect, they will affect our long-term liabilities. We do have monies in there to make sure that we cover those. Right now, we are above our policy requirements, but we do like to make sure that our funded status remains intact, especially with our AAA bond rating. And then we always, as we do with our revenues, have a conservative approach. With all the actions that have been going on downtown, they haven't coalesced around the final budget. We do take a conservative approach to our state and personal property tax collections. And then even on the interest rate market, the last few years, our interest earnings have been growing. This year, we are expecting them to dip as those maturities roll off and they are currently being reinvested, into lower rate yields. So all in all, if the economic landscape does shift, we do have some flexibility to pivot to that so that we don't have to take any unnecessary actions. And then finally, speaking of inflation, this is one metric that we always look at, is that, what does it cost to run the government? You see that, the budget may be going up by $90 million or $80 million, but what does it really cost to run it once you strip out those inflationary factors? You can see there in the bar chart that after the recession in 08 and 09, that cost per capita started to decline. It's ticked up in the last year with some of the investments that were made, but we are still lower than that post-recession average in 2008, 2009. And if you take that graph back further, we're effectively operating at 1992 levels. So for schools, as I say, we are transferring about $18 million in our general fund to them this year. With that additional SRP infusion that we made last year, freeing up money, the effective increase is about $28 million for fiscal year 23. But there are, this time of year we focus on the transfer to schools, but there are a lot of things that the board does outside of this part of the budget cycle that we've taken over the last 2 years to help our schools. On the operating, when we cut back in our budget in fiscal year 21 by $51 million, we actually increased the transfer to schools that year by $10 million. 2022's increase was $18 million, the then largest increase. On the capital side, we were able to take advantage of lower rates on the market by going out and refinancing debt. We were able to make $58 million of major maintenance infusion into the schools in fall of 2020. Last month, we closed on the $136 million Virginia Public School Authority bonds to be able to accelerate 2 middle schools in the county. 2 of the programs that are in our CIP, the ERP, or basically our finance system, and the joint warehouse facility are going to be shared between us and the schools. The county is going to fund all of that out of its own side. And then with the land that we've purchased at Springrock Green and Upper Magnolia, potential sites for either school headquarters or schools, we've contributed to that outside of our county coffers. And then some one-time funding with our CARES and ARPA allocations, we've been able to make some sizable investments into the school. As you can see there, the bottom 3 of those come to about $80 million all in. So the referendum, after we had originally planned it for November 2021, but due to COVID and all the uncertainty that happened at the time, we are now full steam ahead in planning for our next referendum. The only silver lining I will say about COVID is it really has enabled us to look at the project concepts, costs, and locations, and they are much more defined than what we had about 2 years ago. Prioritization and feedback from employees, elected officials, and most importantly, citizens and businesses have helped to define an array of school, parks, libraries, fires, and police precincts that have something for everyone, everywhere in the county. We are proposing to have a ballot by the end of the year, but here are some of the highlights from the referendum. For our fire stations, we are proposing the replacement of our Chester and Ettrick fire stations and expanding and renovating our Clover Hill and Dutch Gap fire stations. For police, we are proposing to build 4 new police stations in Stonebridge, Western Hull Street, Chester and Westchester areas. And actually has the additional benefit right now of once we build those, we will get out of some long-term leases that we've been paying for. So those monies will be then reinvested back into the organisation. For our libraries, we're replacing Enon. I believe that is the smallest library in the county, about 4,000 square feet. That will be proposed to be built at a new 20,000 square foot facility, expanding the Ettrick Matoaka Library and then a new library in the kind of Western Hull Street area. For parks, we are going to be making some investments into River City. That really has been a tourism driver for us. It has generated over about $1.2 million of tax revenue in fiscal year 21 and brought over $30 million of economic impact to the county in fiscal year 2021 alone. We are proposing 2 boat launches in the county at Falling Creek and James River to take advantage of one of our greatest natural assets and promote recreation in the community. Then also a development of a softball complex at Honor Park, again to help promote that tourism, sports tourism into the county. And at schools, it's flexible with the growing populations, but funding could go towards any identified schools that are in their plan: Old Hundred Elementary, Grange Hall Elementary, Midlothian Middle, Matoaka Middle, and a new 360 West High School. And so right before you now, it's just a kind of referendum timeline. We will have our public hearing on the budget, including the capital programme, on March 23rd. We will petition to the court to add to the ballot in August, and then from June through the October timeframe, we will have a heavy public engagement about the referendum. You can see there the proposed projects that will be on that ballot from fiscal year 23 through 27, kind of a cadence between our parks, libraries, and our police and fire services. And then finally, just to talk about our utility rates, the proposed increase on an average household is about 2.6%. well below the rate of inflation. Utilities do a great job with their 10-year rate model of kind of smoothing out fluctuations in prices so that there's no drastic sudden year-over-year changes. And as you can see with the 23 proposed average bill for a consumer is actually still lower than those of our regional partners that had in their budgets last year. And I've already read in the news in the last couple of weeks that some of those prices in our regional peers will be going up. So kudos to our utility staff in keeping our rates steady and lowest in the region. And then the road ahead, tonight, our first meeting, the one of 5, March 14th, 16th, 21st, and 22nd. And then we will have the public hearing on March 23rd on the budget, with April 6th being the evening of budget adoption. In the meantime, outside of these public meetings, please submit your feedback and input anytime to our Blueprint Chesterfield site at blueprint@chesterfield.gov, and we'll be happy to respond to any questions and comments through there. So with that, I believe we will now open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Durkin. Certainly, that schedule was excellent. Also, please note that you may attend any of the supervisors' district meetings as the schedule up there just showed. And so you still have until May 23rd when we'll have a public hearing for the entire county again, and we'll continue to listen to you. And so now we're here to listen and receive your input and your suggestions. But I might say a few points. I think you did an excellent job talking about utilities. We have a AAA utilities, only about 3 or 4 in the nation, which is rare to have a AAA utility. We also have a AAA county, which borrows money lower than anyone else can, even the federal government, I might say, at this point. We must have a balanced budget by law, and we do. We've always balanced the budget here in Chesterfield County, and we'll continue to do so. And we've had some really great times over the years. And when you saw those tax rates up there, I remember each one of those from the last few years. I can explain them. A year that we went up by 1 penny, I was chair of the board, and that was for schools, for education, I might add, to Bill. And so the schools that we are experiencing today from the 2013 bond referendum, those schools were built as a result of that 1 penny increase that was solely for education in the county of Chesterfield. And we have an excellent school system, and we have an outstanding Board of Education member here with us tonight. So now we're open for questions and comments, please. Positive or however you want to do it. We'll take positive comments too. Any comments?
Mr. Holland, we had one question
Yes,
submitted
online.
through Facebook about our venue tonight and why these meetings are not being held within the districts for each of the board members. The answer to that is the central location of this particular facility and also the technology that this room is equipped with. We do have plans to be able to make a virtual meeting or what we call a hybrid meeting that includes in-person and virtual, more accommodating out in the districts as we move forward. This meeting is also open to anyone in the county, so we also looked at this at the central location that it provides. So I just wanted to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate that. Dale is central to the county. We are the heart of the county, as I've always said, as Dale supervisor. We are the heartbeat of the county. A question, comments, please come forward. And give us your name if you would, please. And if you have a different district, that's okay. Just let us know. And we want to make sure we're documenting your inputs. And this is also important because other supervisors will hear your comments and your suggestions throughout the county. So we appreciate your being here, and thank you for stepping forth.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mr. Holland, Ms. Bailey. My name is Christine Melendez. I am currently honored to serve as the president of the Chesterfield Education Association. For the last 3 years, I was an educator at Matoka High School in the Matoka District. And I am first here to thank you for always first being responsive to any comments or questions you get from the public. I know anytime I've reached out, you have been very quick to respond. And so I wanted to thank you for that first and foremost. And you as well, Ms. Bailey, you've always been responsive. So thank you for that. I am just here on behalf of the Education Association and my members to make sure that it is heard that we definitely need the budget that was presented by the school board and passed on to the county government to pass as it is written, as it is funded. We cannot afford to take any cuts. The last time we were able to speak about the budget in person was 2 years ago, and at that time, we had about just a little over 20 vacancies in our school division. This time, 2 years later, we have just over 200 vacancies in our school division. And we know that that is in part due to the times that we are facing, and it's been difficult to staff many areas of our county. But we also understand that if we see any more cuts to the budget that was passed along by the school board, that we may see that number increase, double, triple, but for next year. But our number of students continues to increase. And we know that if we continue to see losses, it will be more and more difficult for our school division to serve well the community that we live in. And we know that we want to see a bright future for our students. So thank you in advance for your support of that budget.
Thank you for your service to our teachers, our students, and to Chesterfield County. We are a great county because of citizens like you who step up and serve. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Laura Shelton, and I am a resident of the Dale District. I have 2 young girls who are at Beulah Elementary School, and one will actually be graduating from there and attending Salem Church Middle School in the fall. We just moved here about 2 years ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic. But one of the reasons we chose Chesterfield was because of the schools. And so I'm here to ask you to fully fund the school board approved budget as presented. Hiring and retaining qualified staff has to be the #1 priority because that is who is teaching our children. And if you are not able to not only hire staff, but retain the already qualified staff you have, it creates huge gaps. As already spoken, the number of open positions rolling into this year. And I'm afraid it's only going to actually go up, that we just don't actually know how many just teachers aren't coming back. And you're seeing that throughout everywhere, really. And so it's very concerning as a parent with a child in school right now. Additionally, infrastructure. You know, Mr. Holland, we spoke today. I want to thank you again for returning my phone call. Really appreciate that. And you talked about, you know, Beulah, it's a new school. I believe it's, 3 years old?
Yeah, we built out the 2013 bond referendum, so it's just a few years old. But
Okay.
It was, so, it's only, okay, thank you. A school board member's going to comment. Go ahead, point your mic, put your mic
I
on.
believe it's on its 3rd year
Third year?
with
Okay.
10 trailers. I have a feeling.
And that is what I was actually going to address. I brought this up with you earlier, and I think you might have been a little surprised, no offense, but we have a whole grade that's in trailers. And we're a new school, and I can't imagine the other schools in the district who are older, who need to be replaced, who have, you know, even more issues. But Beulah's now even slated to get more and more students. And so they don't have the capacity at this point. And that's really concerning because, again, this impacts the children's education. And also speaking to Salem Church Middle School, I know they have extreme concerns. You talk about public safety as well as education. They have extreme concerns about the road that their children are crossing into the middle school. They are asking, people are flying through the crosswalks, nearly hitting children. They're looking to try to get funding for a crosswalk, flashing lights, a cross guard, something, because they're worried that one of these days it's not going to be a near miss anymore. It's going to be a tragic accident. I know talking earlier today, too, you did mention the fact that one of your concerns with the school budget was the administrative highlights within it. And I just did want to ask if you or Ms. Bailey have any insight into exactly maybe how much Chesterfield, compared to other counties, spend in administration per student.
Ms. Bailey, could you share that question?
I have a chart right here. I wish I could project it for everyone to see, but this is the chart that shows the per pupil expenditure. And they break this down by categories. And in the administration category, how much do we spend per pupil in administration? Out of our comparators, so in other words, compared to the state average, Chesapeake, Hanover, Virginia Beach, Henrico, Chesterfield spends the least. We spend the least amount per pupil in all of our competitors for administration cost. We spend $487 per pupil for administration costs, whereas the state average is $762.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Bailey, because
Thanks, Sherry.
I wish I could project it.
if that's a concern,
Yes, ma'am. We're always concerned about, I'm always concerned about spending, as you well know. Being a CPA, I believe we got to really scrutinize every dollar that we bring in and take out and make sure that we're doing the very best for you, the citizens. You're at the top of the chain in that regard. And so that's why I'm here to listen to you and to evaluate your questions and to certainly respond to them. So thanks for asking that question.
yep, all right. Thank you very much.
We appreciate your service. By the way, too, I should mention, I just sent an email yesterday to the presidents of the PTA at Salem Church Middle and Fallen Creek Middle, and the county is addressing that. And Ms. Bailey and I discussed this evening. We're addressing the safety for the children who are crossing. I just want to make sure we did it comprehensively so that what we do in Dale, we can replicate throughout the entire county so that all students are safe, but we've taken care of that already. But thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Holland, Mrs. Bailey, Mr. Durkin. My name is Fred DeMay, and I'm from the Mataka District, and I want to address a couple of different things here. Mrs. Bailey, I had sent you an email a few days ago, and you were one of the 3 school board members to actually reply to me on the issue, and I do appreciate that. A couple of things that you did reply to me with, and I did a little research here, and I just wanted to go over a couple of those. The first issue that you came back with, let me quote here, you said, "Our student population is growing and our teachers are woefully underpaid." Okay, according to Indeed, which is a large online hiring and payroll situation, Virginia as a whole ranks number 12 out of 50 states in teacher pay. Another study done by ADP, which is a massive human resources and payment processor, ranks Virginia as 15 out of 50. So I don't know how you define woeful, but I define woeful as pretty bad, and we're not really that bad. Now, on another issue here, we're in the midst of a nationwide teacher shortage. No doubt. We have a shortage of math teachers. We have a shortage of some science teachers. We have a shortage of ESL teachers. There's no shortage of English teachers. There's no shortage of social studies teachers. And there's no shortage government teachers and many others. So I don't know where we're coming up, other than, like I say, the math teachers and science teachers, with teacher shortage. That kind of addresses those 2 issues. Now, a couple other issues. I know a lot of teachers. I have a teacher in a family. And pay is an issue. But policies are an issue. And a lot of teachers are leaving because of the policies of the current school board in the masking issues and many other issues. In fact, you even had to fire a teacher when he simply asked where the science was behind your masking policy. And the answer is, there was no science. Because the science of masks is well known, and they don't work. And we saw that because the children returned to school this past fall masked, and hundreds got sick, and thousands had to be either quarantined or stay at home. Okay, so we have a teacher shortage, or we have issues with teachers leaving Chesterfield County schools. This is mainly due, I think, not, as I say, there is some pay issues, but it's due to policy issues. And the last issue here, and probably one of the most important, is that over the last 20 years, people like Mr. Holland, I think you've been a supervisor for 14 years, yeah, have provided CCPS with tens of millions of dollars. In fact, at this point, it's probably over $100 million of funding for Chromebooks, IT services, infrastructure. And what we were told is by not only other previous school boards, but boards of supervisors was, we need to move forward. This is the way the future is going to go. You know, we have Chromebooks. We need to supply the children with all this IT infrastructure. And yeah, we can simply agree with that. And one issue that was consistently brought forth was that should we get a situation where we have snow days, maybe a natural disaster, we'll be ready to go remote learning. Okay. Pay for the schools, pay for the children, pay for the IT infrastructure, because that's what we need. We saw, with the onset of COVID here, the last school year, one of the most epic disasters in my 25 years here, in the way CCPS was absolutely unable to deal with remote learning. Remote learning in Chesterfield by CCPS was an absolute failure. Absolute failure, and we have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in it. Hundreds of millions, and it is an absolute unmitigated failure. Question to you, ma'am, what are you going to do about your policies that are forcing hundreds of teachers out of the profession? The policies of CCPS that is devastated for 2 years. The children's education put extreme pressure on teachers and other staff members such that they leave the profession, forced to retire early, and cost the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars of an epic failure. Epic. I'd like to hear your comment on that particular issue.
Well, I would certainly thank you for your comments and your passion. I understand and appreciate you coming tonight to speak. I really do.
Okay.
I would just simply say that we experienced a pandemic the last 2 years that was unprecedented, and that our school system worked as hard as we could. I know many teachers that spent 18 hours a day getting those virtual lessons ready. And I was a teacher for 34 years and just retired in 2019, and have dozens and dozens of friends who went through this pandemic doing everything they could for their students. So epic failure, I would say pandemic.
Ma'am,
I understand that you're frustrated, I
Well-
do. But I can say our school system has done everything that we can to mitigate the
Okay.
problems of a nationwide pandemic.
Well, the performance was just hideous, okay? Now, the other thing that I talked to you about in my email was the possibility, we see that the county side is doing a lot here, and we just saw it right now as far as the tax reductions in personal property tax. And I've asked you to look at the possibility of reducing your budget by maybe 1 to 1.5% with a 2-cent decrease, reduce the budget and allow the supervisors to provide another 2 cents of property tax reduction. Basically, we're looking at less than a 1.5% reduction in your budget, in your $837 million budget to accomplish this. You know, 2/3 of people in Chesterfield don't have children in the schools. But we gladly pay for that because we're trying to educate the next generation. And I believe that the generation now owes that to the next generation. But we're having a real tough time here. So Dirk just outlined huge increases in inflation. Gasoline up big time. People are going to see incredible increases. Even with these tax reductions, they're going to see incredible increases in their tax bills. Okay, the real estate tax bills. And so what I'm asking you and the other, school board members to do is to seriously consider a 2 cent, enough of a reduction, a 1.5% reduction, so that the supervisors can give us another 2 cent reduction to make it a 90-cent tax rate as opposed to 92. I'd really like to seriously let you consider that. And See what you can do about that for all your constituents, not just the 1/3 with children in the school system. And I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for your time, sir. Next, please. Thank.
Hello. My
Good
name.
evening and welcome. I'm sorry. Good evening and welcome.
Well, thank you. It's good to see you again, Mr. Holland. I've spoken to the Board of Supervisors before. My name is Nicole Rowland. I live in the Dale District. I have 3 young ones here today, 2 of whom go to Beulah Elementary. My daughter goes to Tomahawk Creek Middle School with me, where I work. I'm a teacher in the county. I'm also on the Environmental Stewardship Advisory Committee for the school board. And you know, I'm here in support of fully funding the budget for the school district. But now I'm going to speak a little bit off the cuff after hearing some of the other comments, because I am a teacher. I've been a teacher here. I've been a teacher for 18 years. I've been teaching in this county for the last 6 years. And I want to tell a little bit about some true stories, right? The day in the life of a real teacher who does this every day. So first of all, I moved to Chesterfield County in 2013 with my children because my parents live in the Mattowick District, and I wanted my children to grow up near their grandparents. I worked and taught in Fairfax County, Virginia. I took the job here, and true story, on the phone with the HR employee, he said, before I give you this number, I want you to understand things are really different here in Chesterfield, and it's a different cost of living, so don't be too taken aback when you hear this number, which was $15,000 less than I was making in Fairfax County. I went back in time to take the job here. You know, something I didn't mention was in 2019, I was actually the Chesterfield County Public School Teacher of the Year. I've poured my heart and soul into this county for the last 6 years that I've worked here. This morning, I said I work at Tomahawk Creek Middle School. We have 1,700 kids, which is wildly overpopulated. I worked with the long-term substitute teacher that I'm currently mentoring because there's a vacancy. 10% of the staff at my school are currently filling in on their planning block. They don't get a planning block at all because they're teaching a class for a vacancy. That's 10% of the staff that's currently getting burnt out because of the extra work that they've had to take on because of the staff vacancies. My husband and I had to have a serious conversation before the decompression was passed, because the Fairfax County pay scale, if I look directly at what I would have been making had I stayed in Fairfax County, that's $30,000 more. For me, that's a whole salary. That's a whole person's starting salary that I would be making right now if I still taught in Fairfax County Public Schools. That's absurd. Okay, let's let that sink in for a little bit. But I still work here in this county because, again, I have roots here. My children go to school here. I appreciate the people that I work with. I know what they pour into what we do every single day. After writing the lesson plans for my long-term substitute, who I'm filling in for, right, in addition to the 150 that I teach, I'm also putting lessons on Canvas and writing her sub-plans for her 150 students for the vacancy that the long-term sub is in. Then I went to a meeting, a planning block meeting for the 7th grade, where my principal had to beg and plead that all of us be out in the hallway, get on. We need more teachers doing our lunch duty. We need more teachers in the hallway because our school is so overpopulated. There's kids everywhere, and these kids have been home for the last 2 years, and they missed out on self-regulatory skills and social emotional learning, and we have to be there on top of the things that are happening when too many kids are in the bathroom at once, and too many kids are in the hallway at once, and too many kids are in the cafeteria at once. And now that our COVID regulations have gone down, it's become obvious that it's overpopulation. That's the problem. And Tomahawk Creek has tons of trailers and mega trailers. My son is one of the kids in 2nd grade whose whole grade level is learning in a trailer at Beulah. I was so grateful, and I spoke to the board last year when I came here on behalf of the ESAC committee, when I said, we need less trailers, we need schools built, and I asked for the referendum then, and it was pushed off till this year. Thank goodness that we have that coming, because we need those schools, and we need the budget fully funded. We need the $23 million that the superintendent asked for. But now, it was greatly shaved off, or thank you to the school board for working as hard as they could to do that. Because I see every day what it is that we have to do and work without, and we've done so much with so little over the last 14 years, I'm sure. I've only worked here for 6, but I doubt that it was better. And when, I mean, to see, at the beginning, when I was watching this slideshow and I saw the list of all the unfunded things, we need those too. I just don't understand how, well, what can we do? I mean, that's my question to you. Aside from me saying, I'm a citizen and we need the school board budget passed, I'm asking, what do we need to do to get more funds? Because we need the libraries, we need the recreation centers. My kids, I would love to put them in a camp, but those camps fill up instantaneously because there's so much need and desire for those types of community programs. I mean, what's the solution? I don't know, Mr. Holland. You have a tough job.
I'm here to listen. That's what I'm here to do, is listen and to come up with solutions to your questions. And that's why I appreciate your passion. First of all, I thank you for serving in Chesterfield County Schools. And we are here to listen. And we'll come up with suggestions and recommendations. I'll be discussing with my colleagues, my 4 colleagues, other colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, and we'll be working with the school board to come up with solutions. But we want you to suggest as well, what do you think we should do? That's why we're here, to listen as well as to come up with solutions. And also, in terms of Tomahawk Creek, we're building a new middle school. The board just issued bonds last October to build a new Fallen Creek Middle School, a new Tomahawk Creek Middle School. So that's already been done. In fact, that was moved ahead of the referendum this year in '22. So
I'm so glad to hear that. But just today, again, my principal, we're 1,700 right now, projected at over 2,000 in our current building, because that new middle school won't be opening until 2024. So we are living hard times right now, and it's important that everybody in the community understand that and recognize that and fully fund the budget that was asked for by the school board, because as it is, it's still not enough. It's not needs-based. So
I thank you for your service. I appreciate your being here tonight. And I'm going to say hello to your kids as well. Thank them for working
them
hard
for
in school
coming.
and making a difference. That's our future, as we say. That's the future.
And they are here to watch, to see. They've come with me before, actually. I don't know if you remember, but he got a little coin, the Chesterfield County coin, the last time we were
Yes,
here.
I do. I remember. Well, thank you.
I just want to
And,
say, and I very much appreciate your service at Tomahawk and everything that you do and all of the hours that you put into your job. And I'm very grateful that you came from Fairfax. 2019 Teacher of the Year, we obviously got a winner. And I appreciate you staying and staying with us. And I will continue to work hard as long as I'm on this board. I have done nothing but fight for teachers and for teacher salaries. And we are not even close to being overpaid. And I say we, 'cause I consider myself still a teacher. But yes, I thank you so much for everything you do, and especially to take your time this evening to come out and speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Turner, and I'm not going to complain about a whole lot other than I've got a pet peeve with the way the taxes are paid. I don't mind paying them. I hate sending them to North Carolina. And I've had discussion with the
The treasurer.
well, not necessarily the treasurer, but some of the county people about why that is. And this was been probably 3 years ago. Around less than $100,000, they were collecting over $1 billion. That's hard for me to believe. Even though he gave me some numbers, okay, I'm not going to dispute it because I don't know anything for a fact. But to send my check to North Carolina, every year we write that check, I'm thinking, why are we sending money to North Carolina? And they got good reasons why. They telling me it sounds good, but I have a hard time believing that. There's other things I'd like to talk about, but I'm not gonna do that right now. But because this is a budget, and I have to write that check, and it goes to North Carolina for y'all to do what y'all need to do. It needs to be brought back to Virginia, at least in Virginia.
Well,
Thank you.
Jerry, I thank you for being here, and thank you for that comment. I've heard that before, and I've talked to the treasurer as well before. And certainly, we have 3 banks right next door to us, 3 banks on the corner. So we have plenty of banks in Virginia, and certainly next door as well. But we'll be working on, I'll get you back a response, Jerry, and we'll let you know in the near future. Thank you for being here, though, and for asking that question. Any questions online? Mr. Durkin, would you, as a question online here we have, which I presume is a virtual one. Yes, thank you, confirm. Mr. Durkin, could you speak to that? And certainly we can also ask in the CCPS to speak to it as well.
Certainly. The question is, what's going to be done to get the hourly rate pay compression of the office staff and management within CCPS transportation? I'm not familiar with the details of the school side of the pay plan, but what I do know is that phase 2 of that pay plan, from what I understand, should be addressing that as part of the fiscal year 2024 budget. I don't know if you have anything, Ms. Bailey, more than that.
What we refer to as salary study 2, because we did the first salary study, which incorporated only student-facing personnel, so teachers and people in, administrators, people in the schools. It did not address a lot of our staff. As you know, we have a tremendously large number of employees in Chesterfield County. So salary study 1 did not address, bus drivers, thankfully, were addressed quite well by the BOS stepping in and helping us. And I would like to point out to the community as well that we had a tremendous bus driver shortage. And because the Board of Supervisors stepped in and helped us with raising the bus driver pay, we've been able to eliminate completely our bus driver shortage. And we are right now fully staffed, and there are no double backs going on with our transportation. However, salary study 2, which has not been completed, to my knowledge, we're waiting still from Evergreen for that salary study to be completed, is going to address decompression of all of those employees that were not it was not addressed in the first salary study. And when that comes back, we should be able to, we've put in a budget line item for this year to address the decompression. Phase 2 of that salary study would then be raising it to market average, or trying to get those folks up to market average. These are our custodians and our cafeteria workers, people in central office, anyone that is not, that was not impacted by the first salary study.
Well, thank you, Ms. Bailey. Let me comment on that as well. From the county's perspective, we did 2 pay studies last year and implemented them. We implement pay study for every teacher in Chesterfield County. Last year, we eliminated the compression. We, for example, a 15-year teacher received a 12% raise last year for 15 years in the county. We eliminate that. This is the second year of the teacher pay plan from last year. We also implemented and funded and held reserves for public safety pay plan, police, fire, the sheriff's department. And this year, we have just reviewed and we're about to implement the third pay plan, which is what you alluded to, which deals with all other staff, county and schools overall. And so we're in the process of working through that as well. And so everyone is being addressed at this point. And regarding the bus driver pay study last fall, we actually met with schools over the weekend, and we came to a resolution to increase the pay shortage with bus drivers. And so there is no driver shortage now, as I understand, because we addressed it last year with our resources that we were able to amass and allocate it. And so we responded to that very quickly. In fact, I believe it was in September we actually did it. I was asked a question at the airport about that, and I said by Monday morning we'll have a resolution, and we did. And we did move on that expeditiously. Are there other questions? No other questions online? Okay, good. Any other comments from anyone here attending in person. Okay. We'll wait for you if you're still thinking it through, no problem at this point. Also, I think it's important to say that we have 4 other opportunities through the other 4 districts to have discussions and also be informed, as we did last year. Each supervisor will listen to what is transpired. Staff will report to us what they hear, and will document what's said, and we will address it. And I certainly look forward to doing that. So every question deserves a response, and all questions are great questions. And I greatly appreciate your taking the time even to be here. And certainly we won't put up the schedule again. If there are no other comments here, let's put up the schedule for other district meetings, and you can attend any one of those. Today is March 10th, the Dale, and next week, the 14th, is Clover Hill District, the 16th, Bermuda District, the 21st, is Lothian District, and the 22nd, Matoaka District. We will also have another opportunity to hear your comments and suggestions and solutions. I always say, if you have a problem, work on a solution. We're willing to listen to that as well. I know I am. I love solutions. I love hearing problems, but I also love hearing solutions as well to that in terms of what we can do. We've tried a number of things in the county over the years since I've been here. Some have been successful, some haven't been. I could mention, but I don't want to dig too deeply into that. But again, on March 23rd, we have a public hearing where you can speak again, and we'll evaluate all the comments from tonight and on through those other nights. And then we hope, God willing, to adopt a budget on April the 6th with all the input that you have at this point. So if there are any other questions, we don't want to hold you here unnecessarily, but we love being with you. At least I do. Again, thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for your service, what you do in the county. And feel free to give me a call anytime if you have any questions or comments or solutions that you think we can do to fund the challenges we have. Have a great evening. Thanks for coming out.